Hello everyone, welcome back to Cloud Institution. So the best software training institution. So now today in this video we're going to see about another interesting and very important interview question. Okay, so this particular question will be asked in most of the interviews. Okay, if you go for any interviews and so for S3, AWS and related to S3 buckets, and this particular question will be asked in majority of the interviews. Okay, so the question is what is S3 static web hosting in S3? Okay, so first of all you should understand what is static web hosting. Okay, why it's been used, and so this particular feature is very important feature for so very important feature for S3 because this particular feature will be used in many companies as a static web hosting. Okay, so what is static web hosting first of all? So static web hosting is nothing but the uh, so it involves the storing all your website static files. Okay, so for example, if you want to host your web application, right? So if you want to host a web application, and you what you have to have and is what you have to have is you have to create one EC2 instance, and you have to install web server. Let it be Apache or HTTPD. Okay, so whatever it is. Okay, so and Nginx. So you need to install this kind of this kind of web servers, and then you have to upload your HTML, CSS, and JavaScripts and all the images and everything. Then it should be resolved, right? So it has to be enable public access. Then it should be resolved. So you should be able to access these files, right? So that is kind of a so that's kind of hosting a website in terms of EC2 instance way. Okay, so what is static web hosting in this sense? Okay, so basically, whenever you're accessing, for example, if you can go back to the notepad, so the difference between static web hosting and the web hosting in the EC2 instances. Okay, so for example, if it's a static web hosting, okay, static web hosting. Okay, so this is kind of a EC2 instance, EC2 instance hosting. So what we have to do is that so what we do here is that we install Nginx or Apache. So we'll be installing Nginx Apache in an EC2 instance. Okay, so let it be the EC2 instance, and what happens is that we'll be having auto scaling. Okay, so and then that auto scaling we attach load balancers. Okay, so we'll be having a DNS. Okay, and we'll be having this kind of a setup, right? So whenever somebody is trying to access this domain, okay, so the request will come from the DNS route the traffic to auto scaling, the auto scaling will route the traffic to the Nginx or Apache web servers, which of multiple Apache web servers. For example, if you have another similar instances which is having a so which is also serving the same web pages, then the request will come to here, then it will resolve back, right? So it will give you the in response back to the user that so we have received the packages, right? So this is how the package will be resolved to resolved to the particular user whenever he's trying to access. So what do you mean by static web hosting? Okay, so static web hosting will avoid these so these many steps. Okay, so it's called multiple hops, right? So whenever you're going into multiple hops into DNS, and then auto scaling group, and auto scaling group will go to EC2 instances, which EC2 instances will be having a so each instance inside itself will be having a VPC. The VPC will be having a NACLs enabled, which is called NACLs enabled, and then inside that we'll be having security groups, and it has to go through a lot of different steps to reach the to reach the web server, and then the web server has to again go through all the networking endpoints, then it has to reach the user. So this particular process will take a lot of time to resolve it. Okay, so that is the reason why so we have introduced so the very important, very interesting, and very essential concept that is called static web hosting. So what you do here is that, so if you can see here, so this is kind of a S3 bucket. Okay, this is the S3 bucket. So in this S3 bucket, what I have is that I have so HTML and CSS and JavaScripts and all my images, so everything will be organized in a folder structure, right? So if anybody wanted to access this particular static web hosting, for example, I'm accessing through cloudinstitution.com. Okay, cloudinstitution.com is my website. Okay, so if I don't wanted to access through these many steps, what I do is the user will be able to access this particular website, the particular website directly, directly to the cloudinstitution.com. So the S3 will serve back all this content immediately to the user. So what happens is that, so the web page loading will be very faster. Okay, so like for example, my web application is kind of a static web page, so I mean it doesn't have any kind of applications installed. So what I do is that, so I don't need to install all this load balancer or EC2 instances. I don't want to do anything, right? So I'll be creating static web hosting in cloud, S3 bucket, and I upload all the files and enable static web hosting. Then you'll be able to access this particular website directly. Okay, but the another criteria is that, the bucket name has to be should be matching exactly the same as your domain name. Okay, that's also very very important concept which you need to be considering. So now if you can go back to the console, now you can see, I have a S3 bucket. How to enable static web hosting in a S3 bucket. Okay, so here, because this is the history interview question, I'll be just explaining, so what is static positioning, how we can use it, right? So here is a cloud institution bucket. Okay, so like, if you want to create a static web hosting, you need to be having a exact domain name like cloudinstitution.com, right? So then if you go for a properties, and if you come down all the way to the bottom, okay, there's a static web hosting features is there here. Okay, so what you have to do is that you have to click on edit here. Okay, then click on enable here. Okay, so if you click on enable here, so it'll be asking you for the index document. So index document is nothing but which document will be having the index.html, wherein it'll be starting of your page in the default page, right? So you need to give index.html, and then if you have a errors.html page, then you can just do it. Okay, this is redirection rules. These are all optional, so you don't need to have any redirection rules and save changes. Okay, so now with this bucket, so because I'm not enabling it, completely, but I don't have any HTML files and CSS files, this stuff. Okay, so now this bucket has been enabled with a static web hosting, right? So now if I have a proper setup, then I should be able to enable the static web hosting. I should be able to access this particular website. All right, so this is what the very very quick introduction about the static web hosting. And if you're preparing for interview, that this particular interview question will be really helpful. So this is how it works, right? So if user is be able to so access through browser, go to the internet. So internet will route the traffic to S3 bucket, and S3 bucket will be having a holding index.html and all the other files. And so the user will be uploading all the files, and it will be directly response back to the user without being installing any EC2 instance or any other services, right? So that's what called static web hosting. Okay, so that is all about this video, guys. So hope you like this particular video. Okay, so if you're preparing for interview or any exams, and so this particular question can also be asked in exam. Okay, so if you go for solution architect examinations, or no senior architect and cloud practitioner, this particular question will be really helpful, and they'll be asking you in a multiple ways. Okay, so hope you like this video. If you like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Okay, and please stay tuned to for more videos in the future. Okay, thank you guys.